Hi, my name is Aaron LeCarry. First of all, I want to apologize about my appearance. I just went through eye surgery and I have had to deal with this for a little bit now, but I look okay enough to do this presentation, so let's get it started. What I did my research project on was game-based learning. Before I get into what that means, I would like to read one of my favorite quotes by Mark Prensky. He's a famous American speaker and writer on education and learning in America. He says, "There is no reason that a generation that can memorize over 100 Pokemon characters with all their characteristics, history, and evolution can't learn the names, populations, capitals, and relationships of all the 101 nations in the world." One of my favorite resources to use in the classroom is what I like to call a word map, or what is commonly referred to as word maps. Now, what I want to ask you guys is that what words come to mind when I say game-based learning? Now, the words that I came up with were learning, game-based research, virtual, skills, knowledge, adventure, and you can make a word map on your own. There are a lot of word mapping tools that you could use on the internet where you just type in a few words that come to mind, and this is what you can make from it. Now I want to get into what actually game-based learning entails. Now, what is game-based learning? Well, according to EdTech Review Online, a reputable online website where they deal with a lot of game-based learning research and resources, game-based learning, or commonly referred to as GBL, is a type of gameplay that has defined learning outcomes. Generally, game-based learning is designed to balance subject matter with gameplay and the ability of a player to retain and apply said subject matter to the real world. Now, since I can't put that in better terms, I've chosen a very short video from YouTube that explains what game-based learning is, and I've loaded it for you. Here we go.
Games-based learning doesn't just mean playing. Successful games-based learning involves students exploring different world scenarios. In a risk-free environment, this develops skills and thought processes. Students can explore rich environments and actively engage with interactive materials. Teachers still need to establish clear learning objectives, but encourage risk-taking and experimentation. Games-based learning can help students better learn their subject, better understand concepts, and better acquire and develop their skill.
Okay, so now that we saw what game-based learning is and how it's used in the classroom, there's a lot of things to consider before you can instill it in your classroom or in your school. Now, what to consider when using game-based learning, or GPL? Well, according to Dr. Patricia Dubell, a PhD specialization in education technology, says that you should really consider the student's age, characteristics, gender, competitiveness, and previous gaming experience, and the game's target age level. Now, this is really important when you're considering what games to apply to your certain grade, because you don't want to give extremely competitive games to kids who aren't as mature enough or have the previous knowledge about the game to play it and it be the most efficient in your classroom. Now, another thing to consider really is the special needs. Which students with disabilities will be left out? How can you allow them to take part in the game-based learning? And what differentiation methods will you be using in your game-based learning? Another thing to consider, and this is important when finding games online or just typing into Google a type of game that you would like to use in your classroom, is the gender and racial diversity. In its choice of characters, language, or situations, does the game offend or slight any particular group of students? Now, this is just a smart thing to consider because you always want to protect yourself when you're in the classroom and when you're at the front of the classroom teaching your lesson or playing the game with the students. Another thing to consider is the number of players. How many students can play at one time? Will too many be left sitting on their hands? And your role as the teacher, which is one of the most important roles. Will you be a passive observer or an active participant? And this is really important when you're choosing the type of game that you're going to involve your students and yourself with, because your position really determines how the game will be played out and how your students will apply what they've learned and obtain the new knowledge from playing the game. And there are many different types of game-based learning. When you divide them into the 4 different types, you have embedded, which usually entails games played on a website or other mobile tech device. This can be harder in the classroom because a lot of classrooms don't let you use your mobile devices or your cell phones. But there always can be special rules made for type of learning that is really effective. And onto different types of game-based learning. The other one is game-based solution, which usually entails that they are games based on strategy and each move affects the next. A common example of this could be something like chess, that's either played with a real chessboard or on the computer. Now, another type of gaming is collaborative gaming. A type of gaming that I would love to use in my classroom if I had used game-based learning more is games that are played in groups of teams with or against other teams or groups. And I feel like this is the most effective game-based learning, but when deciding, that's completely up to you and the type of students you have in your classroom. The last but not least is immersive game-based learning. Games that immerse the players or players, usually lifelike or an RPG role-playing game. Now, the ideal kind of game to use in your classroom would probably be one that entails all of the above: embedded, game-based, solution, immersive, and collaborative. But that's completely up to you, and those games that include all of these above are really hard to find. But they are out there. Now, as for actual examples of game-based learning, it can be used for almost any discipline in any classroom with any age group. And some of them I've listed for you, and that there's architecture, there's math. You could use it with reading, writing, spelling, and grammar. This is especially a great use for game-based learning. Science. It could even be used for free time, for motivational games, brain teasers, or even just for fun. And although some people might not believe that all games are used to grow your knowledge, you would be surprised that even the games that are just for fun really do help. Now, I have put a link up here for you that gives you 100 great game-based learning and games that you could use in your classroom for a variety of subjects, and I hope you follow the link and see if any can apply to your classroom with your students. But more importantly, I have put up a chart here that really shows you the traditional classroom gameplay with the modern game-based learning that is trying to be used today. And I'd really like for you to take the time to read this, because it's a great chart to use when you're having a discussion with your administration or your assistant principal on bringing game-based learning into your classroom and showing that the traditional values are still being held when you apply game-based learning in your classroom. Now, a really radical idea that people are bringing along with game-based learning is that they want to include testing, or testing with tests, or testing with games. Now, this is the constant battle between should we be including testing in game-based learning, or should we leave the testing separate? Now, according to Mark Prensky, the American writer and speaker on learning and education that I had mentioned before, he states that today's students think and process information fundamentally different than their predecessors. Teachers, or digital immigrants, now have to adapt to the language and learning styles of digital natives, a term used to describe students who have always been surrounded by technology. Now, teachers can achieve this by using more game-based learning as opposed to solely just exams. there is testing in game-based learning. It is a form of review, but there is a fair amount of research and resources that do include a type of testing that do test your previous knowledge and your current knowledge on certain subjects that are out there. And this is one of my favorite cartoons that show how poor testing can be in a classroom. And there's a guy talking to a few different animals, and it says, "For fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree." And it just shows you it is very hard to give one exam to a wide variety of different students with different abilities and see how they all pass or try and achieve the exam. One of the most important issues that arise while talking about game-based learning is differentiating and helping students with special needs. Now, according to Professor Griffiths, who is a chartered psychologist and director of the International Gaming Research Unit, special needs children can benefit with the use of digital games. For example, he cites a case where video or digital games had a calming effect on a 7-year-old child with autism. Excuse me. Griffiths also provides research data that suggests that adolescents with attention deficit disorder may experience improvements in grades, sociability, and organizational skills when using educational video games. I have left a link that helps you go and delve deeper into this subject, but it's really important to see that there are cases where game-based learning is really efficient with special needs kids. Now, there are skeptics to game-based learning. Now, what they think and what they don't believe game-based learning can be efficient with is that it's not appropriate for real-life scenarios. For example, game-based learning they don't believe should be used with nursing or nursing students or to be doctors. They say it takes away from direct learning and testing, which it does, but also you have to consider that some testing is included with the game-based learning and that they're trying to combine these two platforms of learning. The skeptics also believe it promotes unhealthy competition and aggression and does not account for all types of learners in the classroom. I'm going to leave that up to you to think about, and after me presenting this knowledge, see how you react with it. Game-based learning and instructional technology. Game-based learning is a form of instructional technology. They are connected because they are each other. Game-based learning should be a part of the instructional technology curriculum. With such a growing support and increasing number of benefits, there is no reason that future teachers and technology coaches should not be well taught with such knowledge. The better a teacher is at facilitating such activities in the classroom, the easier it will be implementing it and having the students be successful taking part in the activities. I've left you what instructional technology is and how it applies to each of the different aspects of instructional technology. These are my resources I have put up for you. I really hope you can take a look at them and see how you could start your game-based learning in your classroom or how to use that. And here's a quick start guide for you just in case you want to take more of a look into it. And last but not least, if you guys have any concluding thoughts, please feel free to email me or contact me through Toro's websites. Now, I just wanted to leave you that with one of my favorite charts with game-based learning, and it says what teachers really think about game-based learning, and it leaves you with a bunch of statistics that really show that it's efficient in the classroom and it should be used. Again, my name's Aaron Licari. I really hope you enjoyed my presentation and my research topic. Please look more into game-based learning for your classroom. I promise it's really effective and it's a fun way of teaching your students. Thank you and have an excellent evening, morning, or afternoon.